I had always believed in my family. After 70 years of life, I had given them everything: my love, my time, my care. My husband passed away decades ago, leaving me to raise my children and nurture my grandchildren. I had never been rich, but I had managed my finances prudently. I had savings, a modest pension, and even a secret inheritance that I kept carefully tucked away. Life was simple, calm, and predictable, or so I thought, until one day everything fell apart. It started with a phone call from my son Benjamin. I could hear it immediately in his voice, not the familiar worry he usually expressed, but something colder, sharper. "Mom, this isn't like you," he said. "You always let us know where you're going. Eleanor is worried, Olivia is worried. We need to know where you are." For the first time, I felt a twinge of surprise. Panic. That was what I heard, not concern for my well-being, but panic because I had gone beyond their control. And in that moment, something shifted in me. "You know what, Benjamin?" I said calmly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm 70 years old. I think I'm old enough to make my own decisions about where to go and what to do." A silence fell over the line. "Mom, you're scaring me," he said finally. "You don't sound like yourself. Are you taking your medications?" Ah, that was it. The first tactic. He was already planting the seed that I wasn't mentally stable. That was the moment I knew. My family had a plan. "I'm perfectly fine, son." "Never better," I replied, and I hung up. Immediately I turned off my phone. They would call incessantly, each ring another attempt to control me, to manipulate me. I needed silence. I needed focus. And most importantly, I needed a plan. That afternoon, I hired the most prestigious law firm in the city. Their head attorney, Dr. Graham Montgomery, a distinguished man in his 50s, greeted me personally when I mentioned the amount I was willing to pay for complete legal protection. "I need absolute security," I explained. "My family is trying to declare me incompetent to take control of my own assets, but I have recordings that prove it's a conspiracy." Dr. Montgomery listened, his expression growing serious as I played the recordings I had made that morning. Benjamin panicking, Eleanor whispering behind his back, Olivia unaware yet complicit. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said finally, "this is extremely serious. What your family is planning constitutes elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and potentially forgery. We could prosecute them criminally." "That's exactly what I want," I replied. "But I want to do it strategically. I want them to pay, but in the most painful way possible for them." Dr. Montgomery smiled. It was a smile that sent a shiver down my spine. A smile of someone who thrives on challenges, someone who had found a case he loved. "Mrs. Caldwell, I think you and I will work very well together. I'll assign my best team, but I need everything, every detail, no matter how small." And so I told him everything. About adopting Benjamin, about my husband, about years of sacrifice, about the secret inheritance, about every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. "Do you know exactly how much you have in your secret accounts?" he asked. $2.2 million in cash, plus 3 properties overseas worth about $1.5 million more, I replied. He stopped writing, looked up at me with renewed respect. "Mrs. Caldwell, you are not just a victim of family abuse. You are a formidable woman who has been underestimated, and we are going to use that power to teach them a lesson." For the first time in days, I smiled genuinely. The war had begun, but now I had the right weapons. That evening, from my hotel suite, I checked my messages. 37 missed calls from Benjamin, 15 from Eleanor, 8 from Olivia. Texts pleading, crying, begging, "Mom, please answer. We are very worried. Grandma, where are you?" I replied only to Benjamin, "I'm fine. I'll come back when I'm ready." The response came immediately. "Mom, this isn't normal. You need to come home now. Eleanor made your favorite dinner." Favorite dinner. I chuckled bitterly. After 45 years, Benjamin still didn't know Eleanor had never cooked anything special for me. Another lie. Another manipulation. The next morning, Dr. Montgomery called with shocking news. My private investigator had started work and uncovered financial crimes. Eleanor had been using my personal information to open credit cards in my name for 6 months. She had accumulated $43,000 in debt, shopping at luxury stores, dining at expensive restaurants, even taking a vacation to the Florida Keys. And Benjamin? He had lost his job 8 months ago and had been living off my money. Each revelation was another stab, a deeper betrayal. They weren't just planning to steal, they already had. And the plan to declare me mentally incompetent was in motion. My granddaughter, Olivia, had secrets too. She was 3 months pregnant by a married man. Eleanor was having an affair with our neighbor, Dave. Each new truth hit me like a thunderclap. The extent of the deception was staggering. I told Dr. Montgomery I wanted all of it documented. Every theft, every lie, every betrayal. But I also wanted them to dig their own graves a little deeper. Let them expose themselves before we struck back. And so I did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping for myself. I bought elegant dresses, a black one, a vibrant red, an emerald green that made me feel powerful. Shoes, a handbag, a hair makeover. Sophia, the stylist, transformed me. For the first time in decades, I saw a woman in the mirror who was no longer invisible, no longer a victim. That night, having dinner in the hotel restaurant, I called Benjamin. "Mom, finally." "Where have you been?" he barked. "Taking care of myself," I said calmly. "I hadn't taken time for me in years. It's revealing. Mom, this has to stop. We have a right to know where you are, a right? Since when did my family have a right over me? Yes, when a 70-year-old woman decides to take a few days for herself?" Benjamin tried the manipulation, planting seeds about psychologists and specialists. I let him. I even agreed mockingly that I needed a specialist. But not for what he thought. I needed a specialist in elder abuse, in family fraud, in psychological manipulation. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I hung up and smiled. The first moves had been made. The game had begun. The family who thought they could destroy me had no idea what was coming. And that, dear viewers, is where I will leave you today. Tomorrow, I will tell you how I uncovered the full extent of their thefts, their lies, and how I prepared for the war that was about to engulf my family. The morning after I had set my plan into motion, I woke up early. The hotel room was bathed in soft morning light, the kind that makes everything feel possible. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and thought about how drastically life could change in a single moment. That's when I realized my family hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. They had spent months orchestrating a sophisticated plan to steal everything I had earned. Every asset, every dollar, every scrap of security I had painstakingly built over decades, they wanted it all. I picked up my phone, opening the encrypted emails from Dr. Montgomery. His team had already begun digging into my family's finances, their communications, and their recent behaviors. The findings were staggering. Eleanor had been quietly selling items from my home for months. Jewelry, antique furniture, even artwork my late husband had collected. Gone. Benjamin, meanwhile, had been using my credit cards for personal indulgences, falsifying bank statements to hide the trail. And the worst part? They weren't just taking from me, they were planning for the long game. There were documents, carefully forged, ready to declare me mentally incompetent. Their ultimate goal was to have me institutionalized, stripped of my legal rights, and helpless while they systematically drained my resources. I called Dr. Montgomery immediately. "Montgomery, are you seeing this?" I asked, my voice steady but my mind racing. "Yes, Mrs. Caldwell, and it's worse than you imagine," he said gravely. "Benjamin and Eleanor aren't acting alone. They've been working with a document forger for months, someone who can create medical records, wills, and other legal papers to give the appearance of legitimacy." My stomach sank. A document forger, a professional, calculating accomplice, someone who could make them look credible even in court. "Do we have any way to stop them?" I asked. Dr. Montgomery paused. "We do, but it requires precision. If we act too soon, they'll cover their tracks. If we wait, they'll present the forged documents and potentially seize your assets. I recommend we document everything, but also gather allies. We need proof that cannot be denied." I felt a spark of determination. This was no longer about money. It was about justice, about reclaiming my life from those I had once called my own. I instructed him to prepare surveillance, financial audits, and recordings. Every interaction, every transaction, every conversation, it all had to be captured. That afternoon, I stepped out of the hotel to survey the city. I needed to feel the world beyond the walls that my family had tried to confine me within. Every street, every pedestrian, every cafe was a reminder that life still existed beyond betrayal. And as I walked, my mind churned through the events that had led to this point. I remembered when I had adopted Benjamin. He was a bright, energetic boy, full of promise. I had invested years of my life ensuring he had every opportunity. I raised him as if he were my own blood, sacrificing my career, my social life, even my own comfort. And yet, decades later, he had become someone I could barely recognize, someone willing to plan my destruction for financial gain. Eleanor, my daughter-in-law, had always been ambitious, but I had never imagined she would resort to criminal schemes. She had manipulated Olivia, used her own child as leverage, and silently guided Benjamin into the shadows of her plans. They had all underestimated me, assuming age and kindness were weaknesses. They couldn't have been more wrong. When I returned to the hotel, Dr. Montgomery was waiting with files. He laid out the evidence, receipts from fraudulent purchases, video surveillance from their recent excursions, bank statements showing transfers to unknown accounts, and even email chains between Eleanor and the document forger. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We can build a case that will stand in court. But we also need a public element. Sometimes, the best way to protect yourself is to ensure others are watching. People tend to behave differently when they know their actions aren't secret." I nodded thoughtfully. I knew exactly what he meant. In recent years, social media had become a powerful tool for accountability. And while I had never been a tech person, I realized it was time to embrace it. That evening, I set up a live stream account on one of the most popular platforms in the country. My title was simple but calculated. A Grandma Exposes the Truth About Family Betrayal. I wanted it to be personal, raw, and authentic. Not sensationalized but undeniable. I started streaming at 8 p.m. At first, there were only a few viewers, strangers, likely algorithm-driven suggestions, but within minutes, the number began to climb. I began recounting my life, my adoption of Benjamin, the sacrifices I had made, the trust I had placed in them, and the first suspicious signs that something was amiss. I revealed the meticulous planning, the financial crimes, the attempts to declare me incompetent. The chat exploded with reactions. "She's brave. This is incredible. I hope she gets justice." My story resonated, not just with young viewers, but with older adults who had faced similar betrayals. People shared their own stories, their own experiences of manipulation and theft. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Midway through the stream, I received a live call from Olivia. My granddaughter's face appeared on the screen, her eyes swollen from crying. "Grandma, please turn it off," she begged. "You're ruining our lives." "Ruining our lives?" I asked, looking directly into the camera so my viewers could hear. "Don't you think you ruined mine first?" Olivia hesitated, her lips trembling. "Grandma, everyone's watching. My friends, my school, they'll judge me. And how do you think I felt when you all planned to commit me, steal my money, and manipulate me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sorrow. The chat was alive with viewers urging me to hold strong. "Tell her the truth," one message read. "Don't let her manipulate you again," Olivia finally admitted, her voice barely audible. She needed money for college, and she had been caught in the web of her parents' schemes, manipulated to participate under duress. I sat in stunned silence for a moment. My heart ached for her, but I knew clarity was necessary. "And that is why you were willing to go along with their plan?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered, breaking down entirely. "But I didn't know the full extent. I didn't know about the money, the forgery, or the credit cards. I was scared. That was the turning point. I realized Olivia could be an ally, but only if she understood the full scope of the betrayal. I gently explained to her that protecting herself meant stepping away from the toxic influence of her parents. And for the first time, she seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. "Grandma, I want to help," she said finally. "I want to do the right thing. I want to support you." And that's when I knew. The tide was turning. The family who thought they could destroy me had underestimated not only my strength, but the power of truth when wielded with courage. The live stream ended with over 7,000 viewers, hundreds of comments of support, and an overwhelming sense of vindication. For the first time, I felt that maybe justice wasn't just a dream. It could be real, but this was only the beginning. The days ahead would reveal just how far Benjamin and Eleanor were willing to go, and how much they had already done behind the scenes. Tomorrow, I will reveal how I uncovered the shocking role of the document forger and what he admitted to the authorities, a confession that would change everything. The morning after the live stream, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Notifications, messages, and missed calls filled the screen. Reporters wanted interviews. Social media accounts were blowing up. But amidst all that noise, one message made my heart skip a beat. A confidential note from Dr. Montgomery. "Mrs. Caldwell," it read, "you need to know, we have a major breakthrough. The document forger, Paul Hayes, has agreed to cooperate with authorities. His confession confirms everything about Benjamin and Eleanor's scheme." I sank into my chair, gripping the hotel's polished wooden desk. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was tempered with caution. Paul Hayes wasn't just any criminal. He had spent years forging medical records, wills, and other legal documents. If he could admit to conspiring with my family, the evidence could be catastrophic, but only if handled correctly. By noon, Dr. Montgomery had arranged a secure video call. Paul Hayes appeared on the screen, looking nervous and evasive. His hands trembled as he clasped them in front of him. I could feel the tension radiating through the screen, the type of tension that comes from someone who knows the walls are closing in. "Paul," I began, my voice steady yet commanding, "I want you to tell the truth. Every detail, the lives you've affected, the crimes you helped commit. There is no hiding from this anymore." He swallowed hard. "Mrs. Caldwell, I don't know where to start. Your family, they paid me months in advance. I created documents, forged wills, and even fabricated medical assessments. They wanted to declare you mentally incompetent, steal your assets, and make everything look legal." My heart pounded. The meticulous planning, the sleepless nights I'd endured wondering how far they'd go, everything was now being confirmed by a professional in forgery. "And you? You're cooperating now?" I asked. "Yes," he said, his voice shaking. "I can't keep living like this. The FBI has been investigating me for months. They offered me immunity if I tell everything. I can't lie anymore. I can't be a part of destroying someone like you." Dr. Montgomery guided me through the details. Hayes admitted that Eleanor had first contacted him 4 months ago. She had outlined every step of their plan: the fake medical documents, the forged will, and the staged nursing home evaluation. Benjamin had funded the operation with credit card fraud and hidden transfers. The lengths they went to were shocking. "This confirms what we suspected," Dr. Montgomery said. "Your family didn't just act impulsively. They carefully orchestrated every aspect of this scheme. Hayes' confession is a legal goldmine. It's enough to bring federal charges for conspiracy, fraud, and elder abuse." I felt a mix of vindication and anger. The people I had raised, nurtured, and supported for decades were revealed not just as ungrateful, but as criminally calculating. Every kind word they ever spoke, every act of apparent care, it had been a mask. Later that day, I prepared for the next phase of my plan. The live stream had shown me the power of public scrutiny. If Benjamin and Eleanor thought they could continue operating in secret, they were mistaken. I would use every tool available, social media, legal channels, and public accountability, to protect myself and expose the truth. By evening, Olivia joined me at the hotel. She had spent the day processing the live stream and learning about the confession from Paul Hayes. I could see the fear and guilt in her eyes, but also a spark of determination. She had decided to take a stand, finally understanding that protecting herself and me meant confronting the harsh realities of her parents' actions. "Grandma," she said quietly, "I want to help. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to do the right thing." I reached out and held her hand. "Olivia, your courage matters more than you realize. This isn't just about me. It's about setting things right, about reclaiming control over our lives. Together, we can face whatever comes next." The next morning, Dr. Montgomery delivered more news. The FBI was preparing to raid Benjamin and Eleanor's offices and residences. With Hayes' cooperation, The authorities had all the evidence needed to uncover the full extent of the fraud. I felt a cautious optimism, knowing that the legal system could now finally intervene. But I also knew one thing: my family would fight back. They had shown cunning, resourcefulness, and manipulation for years. The battle was far from over. I had to prepare for the public narrative, for their denials, and for the attempts to paint me as the antagonist. The live stream had given me a taste of the public's reaction, but courtrooms were different. I needed evidence, witnesses, and unwavering resolve. Olivia and I spent the afternoon going over financial records, documents, and communications from the past months. Every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated letter, every coerced conversation, we cataloged it meticulously. Olivia's insight was invaluable. She had seen things from a perspective I couldn't, and together we started piecing together a timeline of deceit. That evening, I decided to address the viewers from my live stream audience. I went live once more, keeping it short but impactful. "Good evening," I began, my voice calm and unwavering. "Yesterday, I revealed my family's betrayal. Today, I want to tell you that progress is being made. The person they hired to forge documents has come forward and admitted everything. The authorities are now involved, but this is not just my story, it's a warning. Betrayal can come from those closest to you, even those who claim to love you. I am determined to protect myself and to ensure justice is served. Thank you for standing with me," the comments poured in. Words of encouragement, shared experiences, and support from strangers who had never met me in person reinforced a truth I had known all along. Courage, once shown, could ripple far beyond what you imagined. As I closed my laptop, Olivia looked at me with a newfound seriousness. "Grandma, they're going to try everything now. They'll deny it, lie, and maybe even try to manipulate me again. Are you ready for that?" I smiled, a cold, determined smile. "I've been ready a long time, my girl. This family underestimated me for decades. Now, they're going to see exactly what it means to betray someone who refuses to be defeated." And with that, we knew the next chapter of this story would be the most intense yet, the authorities moving in, the confrontation with my family, and the exposure of every hidden crime. Tomorrow, I will share how the FBI investigation unfolded, how Benjamin and Eleanor reacted when confronted, and the first cracks in their carefully constructed facade began to appear. The following morning, the hotel suite felt unusually quiet. Even the bustling city outside seemed muted, as if the world was holding its breath for what was about to happen. Olivia and I sat side by side at the dining table, surrounded by stacks of documents, bank statements, and recordings we had meticulously collected over the past weeks. It was our arsenal, proof of betrayal, fraud, and premeditated abuse. Then my phone rang. It was Dr. Montgomery, and the urgency in his voice made me tense instantly. "Mrs. Caldwell, it's time. The FBI is moving in. They have warrants for Benjamin, Eleanor, and all associated locations. They're prepared to execute searches and arrests within the hour. Are you ready?" I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. "I've never been more ready. Let's make sure justice is done." By mid-morning, a fleet of unmarked vehicles pulled up outside Benjamin and Eleanor's homes. Federal agents, dressed in plain clothes and tactical vests, moved swiftly and efficiently, executing the warrants with precision. Through the news reports streaming live on my phone, I watched my family's empire of lies crumble in real time. Benjamin was taken into custody first. He didn't resist, but the look of sheer disbelief on his face was something I would never forget. The man who had once arrogantly believed he could manipulate me and the world was now reduced to silence, escorted by agents whose authority he could no longer challenge. Eleanor, on the other hand, screamed and protested. She tried to claim she was being targeted unfairly, that they were exaggerating everything. But the evidence, the forged wills, fraudulent mortgages, fake medical documents, and illegal credit card transactions was undeniable. Watching it unfold, I realized something profound. For all their cunning, Benjamin and Eleanor had underestimated me. They hadn't counted on my resilience, my resourcefulness, or my refusal to be intimidated. For decades, I had raised, supported, and loved them, and they had turned that love into a tool for manipulation. Now, the same system they had attempted to exploit was holding them accountable. By noon, Dr. Montgomery called again. Mrs. Caldwell, the first interviews with Paul Hayes are complete. He's fully cooperating, and every claim he made matches the evidence we've seized. This is stronger than anything I've ever seen in elder abuse cases. I felt a shiver of vindication. Months of planning, fear, and careful documentation were finally culminating in a legal victory. Yet I knew the emotional aftermath would be just as significant. The media was reporting live, and my family's reputation, once carefully curated, was now in shambles. Later that afternoon, Olivia and I attended a secure debriefing with the FBI. The agents detailed how Benjamin and Eleanor had orchestrated a complex network of deceit, hidden accounts, falsified documents, and manipulations designed to isolate me from anyone who could intervene. They had even considered having me declared mentally incompetent to gain control over my finances legally. Every step of their plan had been calculated, but every step had been exposed. Olivia sat quietly beside me, absorbing the details. I could see a mixture of fear, guilt, and relief in her eyes. Finally, she whispered, "Grandma, I can't believe this. They were planning this all along." I squeezed her hand. "Yes, my girl. But now you understand why it's so important to stand up, to protect yourself and the truth. You're learning what I learned decades ago. Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty, honesty, and respect." As we left the FBI building, I felt a sense of empowerment, unlike anything I had experienced in years. For so long I had been cautious, fearful of my own family's ambitions. Now the tables had turned. My role was no longer passive. I was an active participant in securing justice, not only for myself, but for anyone vulnerable to similar betrayals. That evening, I went live on my usual streaming platform to update viewers on the unfolding events. Over 10,000 people tuned in. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady, commanding attention. "Today marks a significant turning point. The authorities have intervened, and my family is being held accountable for actions that were planned, deliberate, and cruel. This isn't just about me. It's about anyone who has ever faced betrayal from those closest to them." The live chat exploded. Supportive messages poured in. "Justice at last. Mrs. Caldwell, you are incredible. This gives me hope. I've been through something similar." It was overwhelming, but it reinforced one truth: transparency and courage are powerful tools. As the night grew late, Olivia and I sat together reflecting on the events of the day. She asked questions, trying to process the legal and emotional ramifications. I explained the importance of evidence, documentation, and persistence. I shared stories of resilience, of standing up even when the odds seemed insurmountable, emphasizing that justice is rarely instantaneous but worth pursuing. By the time we retired for the night, I felt an unusual calm. The whirlwind of deceit and betrayal that had consumed my life for months was now being dismantled piece by piece. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of safety, knowing that the authorities, combined with my vigilance, were finally protecting me. Little did I know, however, that Benjamin and Eleanor had one last card to play. They might have been exposed, but desperate people often take desperate measures. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. Their lies, manipulation, and cunning could extend beyond the walls of the courtroom, into the lives of those around us, including Olivia. Tomorrow, we would learn exactly how far desperation can push someone. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to breathe, to feel hope, and to believe that justice, no matter how delayed, could be achieved. The morning after the FBI raids, the city seemed different. It wasn't just the aftermath of legal chaos. It was the silence of anticipation, the kind that fills the spaces where lies once thrived. Olivia and I woke early, sifting through the latest documents and recordings that had come from the authorities. Every detail pointed to one thing: my family's desperation had only grown, not diminished. "Grandma," Olivia said, flipping through her notes, "I think they're planning something. I don't know what, but it feels like they're not done." Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were sharp and alert. I could see that the fear in her heart was tempered by a determination I had cultivated in her over the past weeks. I nodded slowly. "You're right. When people like Benjamin and Eleanor lose control, their desperation becomes dangerous. But we are prepared, and the more we know, the safer we are." By midday, Dr. Montgomery called again, urging us to meet at his office. Mrs. Caldwell, Olivia, we need to review everything one more time. I've consolidated all evidence, and I want us to strategize before anything else happens. Their moves may be unpredictable, but ours need to be precise. The office was quiet but intense. Stacks of evidence covered every surface: bank statements, emails, recorded phone calls, and videos. The gravity of the situation settled over us like a storm cloud, heavy but electrifying in its clarity. Dr. Montgomery started with Benjamin. Your son's pattern is clear. He's trying to manipulate, intimidate, and divert attention. The FBI arrests won't stop him from attempting indirect actions, emails, forged documents, or even attempts to bribe witnesses. We need to be proactive. Olivia leaned forward. Do you mean they might try to manipulate people outside the immediate family? Friends, teachers, maybe even me? Yes, Dr. Montgomery replied. And we have to anticipate that. Your testimony, Olivia, will be critical, but so will your safety and the safety of the evidence you've collected. We cannot underestimate their desperation. The strategy session lasted hours. We mapped out every potential move, discussed the timing of court filings, and reinforced our evidence chains. I felt a surge of determination. For decades, I had allowed my family to take advantage of my trust, my love, and my patience. But now, every piece of paper, every recording, and every decision was in my control. I was no longer the passive victim. They were finally the vulnerable ones. By evening, Olivia and I returned to the hotel suite, exhausted but focused. The night's silence was different now. It was a silence filled with anticipation for justice rather than fear of betrayal. I decided to go live on my streaming platform again, updating our growing audience. Within minutes, thousands of viewers tuned in, eager for updates. Good evening, everyone, I began, trying to project calm and authority. The last 24 hours have been intense. Federal authorities have taken action against my family, but as expected, desperate people often have desperate measures. Benjamin and Eleanor are still attempting to maneuver behind the scenes. But today, Olivia and I are taking the next steps to ensure that truth and justice prevail. The chat exploded. Supportive messages poured in, and I felt the warmth of a virtual community rallying around me. For the first time, the fear that had haunted me for weeks began to ebb. I was not alone, and neither was Olivia. Later that night, a strange email appeared in my inbox. It was from an unknown address, titled, "We can still fix this. Listen carefully." I opened it cautiously. It contained a single paragraph, written in a tone both pleading and threatening. Martha, you don't understand everything. We never wanted it to get this far. If you stop the live streams and agree to meet us, there's a way to resolve this quietly. Think about what's best for Olivia. Think about what's best for all of us. I showed the email to Dr. Montgomery immediately. This is exactly what I expected, he said grimly. It's an attempt to intimidate you, to lure you into a situation where they can manipulate you. Do not respond. Do not engage. We will handle everything through proper legal channels. Any deviation could jeopardize the case and your safety. Olivia, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. Grandma, they're trying to trick us. But we won't fall for it. We're stronger than they are. We know the truth now. Her words, so firm and mature, made my chest swell with pride. She had come a long way from the frightened, confused teenager who had first confessed to her involvement in their schemes. The next day, we prepared for the first court hearing. I chose a black suit, elegant, understated, and powerful. Olivia and I walked into the courthouse together, each step a declaration of confidence. The media was waiting, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. But I focused solely on Olivia and the mission ahead. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. The defense had arranged for Benjamin and Eleanor to be present, their faces a mix of anxiety and defiance. They were trying to present themselves as victims of misunderstanding, hoping to manipulate the jury with false narratives of love, concern, and family loyalty. But every document we had collected, every recording we had made, was a shield against their lies. The prosecutor, a tall man with a commanding presence, laid out the charges: conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse, forgery, and attempted manipulation of witnesses. He presented evidence methodically, each piece reinforcing the next. The recordings of Benjamin and Eleanor plotting against me were played in the courtroom, leaving the defense scrambling. Even their lawyers couldn't dispute the authenticity. The time-stamped videos, documented bank transactions, and recorded conversations left no room for doubt. When it was Olivia's turn to testify, I watched her take the stand with a mix of pride and anxiety. She was calm, composed, and articulate, recounting every detail of the schemes, every manipulation, and every threat. She testified to the moments she had tried to intervene, her own fear and confusion, and her eventual decision to support the truth. The courtroom fell silent, hanging on every word. I realized, in that moment, that justice was not just about the law, it was about courage, integrity, and the willingness to face truth no matter how painful. For too long, my family had assumed they could manipulate reality itself. Today, the reality was undeniable, and it favored honesty, loyalty, and love. By the end of the day, Benjamin and Eleanor were visibly shaken. Their confidence, built over decades of deceit and manipulation, had cracked. The jury had seen the evidence, the witnesses, and the courage of a grandmother and her granddaughter who refused to be silenced. And while the trial was far from over, the first victory had already been secured. The truth was out, undeniable and unshakable. As we left the courthouse, Olivia whispered, "Grandma, I'm scared." I held her close. "I know, my girl. But fear is different from powerlessness. We have the power of truth, and that is stronger than any threat, any scheme, or any lie." And for the first time in weeks, I felt that we were truly ready for whatever Benjamin and Eleanor would throw at us next. Their desperation was dangerous, but ours was righteous, calculated, and unstoppable. The following morning, the courthouse was alive with tension. Reporters, cameras, and spectators crowded every corner, hungry for updates on the case that had gripped the entire city. Olivia and I arrived early, our footsteps echoing down the grand marble halls. I could feel the weight of what was to come. The truth was our weapon, but in the wrong hands, it could be twisted. "Grandma," Olivia whispered as we walked toward the courtroom. "I can feel it. Today, everything changes." "Yes, my girl," I replied, my voice calm despite the storm building inside me. "Today, we let the law do what it was meant to do. Today, the truth will speak louder than their lies." Inside the courtroom, Benjamin and Eleanor were already seated at the defense table. Benjamin's face was pale, the arrogance I had once seen in him replaced with visible tension. Eleanor, always the more calculating of the two, sat rigidly, her eyes darting nervously around the room as if anticipating a surprise attack. Their expensive suits and carefully styled appearances did nothing to mask the fear simmering beneath the surface. The prosecutor, standing tall and authoritative, opened the proceedings with a confident tone. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you are about to hear is more than a case of family dispute. This is a meticulously orchestrated scheme by two adults who betrayed not only a mother, but their own daughter, all for financial gain." He began presenting the evidence with precision, each document and recording layered carefully to build the narrative. There were transcripts of phone calls, bank statements, fraudulent credit card charges, and videos showing Benjamin and Eleanor discussing strategies to manipulate me, the supposed matriarch of the family. As each piece was presented, the tension in the room grew. You could feel the silent calculations of jurors as they absorbed the weight of the evidence. When it came time for Olivia to testify, I watched her stride confidently to the witness stand. She was no longer the timid, confused teenager who had first confessed to being part of their schemes. She had transformed into a young woman with courage and clarity, her voice unwavering as she recounted everything she had witnessed. "I heard my parents plotting against my grandmother," she said, her eyes meeting the jury's. "They spoke about making her seem mentally incompetent, forging documents and stealing her property. I was scared, but I realized that telling the truth was the only way to stop them. I didn't do this for revenge. I did this to protect someone I love and to do what is right." The courtroom remained silent. Even Benjamin's defense attorney could not find a crack in her calm delivery. She presented evidence she had collected herself. recorded conversations between her parents plotting, texts, and videos of Eleanor counting money obtained from fraudulent activities. Every detail reinforced the narrative of betrayal, greed, and manipulation. The defense attorney tried to attack her credibility. "Miss Caldwell," he said aggressively, "isn't it true that you are pregnant and need financial support? Could this not be a motive for exaggeration?" Olivia's reply was firm, precise, and devastating. "Yes, I am pregnant, but that does not give anyone the right to manipulate or steal from my grandmother. I am telling the truth because it is the right thing to do. Nothing more, nothing less." The jurors nodded as she continued, describing the full extent of the schemes. She detailed how her parents had taken credit cards in my name, forged documents to try to declare me mentally incompetent, and even approached a document forger to create a fake will. The magnitude of the betrayal was staggering, and the courtroom could feel the moral weight pressing down on everyone present. When my turn came, I walked to the stand with deliberate calm. Every eye in the courtroom was upon me, but I was not intimidated. I told my story plainly, recounting decades of devotion, sacrifice, and the moment-by-moment realization that the family I trusted most had plotted against me. "They planned every detail," I said, my voice steady. "Every document, every phone call, every lie. They thought they could manipulate me and control my life. But what they failed to understand is that truth is stronger than deceit, and love is stronger than fear. I have lived my life with integrity, and today, integrity has returned to me." The courtroom gasped when I revealed the role of Paul Hayes, the document forger and FBI informant. I played the recordings of Benjamin and Eleanor negotiating the bribe, their desperation audible, their greed unmasked. The defense attorneys scrambled, but the evidence was undeniable. The jury could not ignore the meticulous web of lies and fraud that had been woven. Benjamin's attempts to regain composure were pathetic. He whispered frantic instructions to his attorney, who whispered back, trying to salvage a case that was crumbling with every passing moment. Eleanor's once confident demeanor had been replaced by raw fear. She avoided my gaze entirely, and I could see the tears threatening to fall. By the afternoon, the prosecution rested, and the jury began deliberations. Olivia and I walked out together, the air outside fresh and liberating. Supporters from earlier live streams had gathered near the courthouse, waving signs and offering words of encouragement. People who had never met me and yet felt a profound connection through our shared struggle cheered and applauded. It was overwhelming but reassuring. Back at the hotel, Olivia and I reviewed the case notes. "Grandma," she said, holding my hand tightly, "do you think they will get away with it?" I smiled, though my heart was heavy with the weight of all that had been betrayed. "No, my girl. Justice has a way of finding the truth, especially when the truth is as clear as daylight. But remember, even when justice prevails, healing takes time. We must be patient, and we must remain vigilant." That night, before going to sleep, I reflected on the journey. From the moment Dr. Sterling handed me that note urging me to run, to discovering my family's sinister plans, to transforming our fear into action, I had learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the resolve to act despite it. And as the first glimmers of dawn crept through the hotel curtains, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had faced betrayal, manipulation, and greed. We had exposed secrets that could have destroyed us. And yet, here we were, standing strong, united, and ready for whatever the next day would bring. Because one truth had become undeniably clear. The stronger the lies, the more powerful the revelation of truth. The courthouse was tense, a thick silence hanging in the air like a storm about to break. Every person inside seemed to hold their breath, as if aware that this moment could not be undone. Olivia and I sat together, hands clasped tightly, waiting for the jury to return. The spectators whispered quietly, reporters shifted pens nervously, and Benjamin and Eleanor fidgeted in their seats, each trying in vain to mask their growing anxiety. The foreman of the jury finally entered, carrying the verdict that would decide the fates of my once-beloved family. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of the decades of betrayal that had brought us to this moment. The judge cleared his throat and gestured toward the foreman. "Members of the jury, the foreman began, his voice steady. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor," he replied, placing the piece of paper carefully on the bench. The judge opened it and scanned the words aloud. "On all counts of conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse, we find the defendants guilty." A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Cameras flashed as reporters scribbled furiously. Benjamin's face went pale, his jaw tight. Eleanor's eyes welled with tears, but she quickly tried to regain her composure, knowing that no amount of acting could undo what had been revealed. The prosecutor addressed the court with satisfaction, though he did so with professionalism. "This verdict sends a message. No amount of wealth, deception, or family ties grants immunity from the law. Justice is blind, and today, justice has prevailed." Benjamin tried to argue, his voice shaky and desperate. "Your Honor, this is absurd." "We didn't," but the judge cut him off sharply. "Silence. The verdict has been delivered. Sentencing will follow." When the sentences were read, the weight of the moment hit hard. Benjamin was sentenced to 12 years in prison for conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Eleanor received 10 years for similar charges, plus additional years for mortgage fraud. Their carefully constructed world had collapsed in an instant, leaving only shattered ambitions and the bitter taste of defeat. Outside the courthouse, Olivia and I were met by a small crowd of supporters, journalists, and strangers who had followed our story from its viral beginnings. People shook my hand, offered words of encouragement, and even cried alongside us. One elderly woman approached, grasping my hands tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You gave me courage to stand up to my own family. You are my hero." I hugged her gently, tears welling in my eyes. It was a moment I had never imagined. A life spent giving and loving finally met with acknowledgement, respect, and gratitude. Olivia stood beside me, her expression a mix of awe and determination. She had grown immensely through this ordeal, her courage and wisdom exceeding her years. Back at the hotel, Olivia and I reflected on everything that had transpired. "Grandma," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I can't believe it's over. I mean, they're going to jail." "Really?" "Yes, my girl," I replied softly, my fingers brushing hers. "But this is not just about their punishment. This is about truth, integrity, and the lessons we take forward. We've won the law's justice, but the real victory is knowing that we acted with honor and courage." Yet, even as relief washed over me, a gnawing thought lingered in the back of my mind. While the legal battle had concluded, the emotional aftermath would be complex. How could trust ever be rebuilt after such betrayal? Could Olivia and I truly move forward, knowing that the people who shared our blood had once schemed to destroy us? That evening I received an unexpected call. It was Olivia. "Grandma," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "there's something you need to know before we celebrate. Mom and Dad, they tried one last thing while we were in court." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart tightening. They attempted to contact me from the courthouse hall. They wanted me to lie about everything, to say it was all a misunderstanding, that I manipulated you. They even tried to bribe me, Grandma. They offered money, gifts, everything they could think of to save themselves. My blood ran cold. Even as the legal system had delivered its verdict, their willingness to manipulate, deceive, and attempt to corrupt the outcome had never wavered. "And what did you do?" I asked. I told them no. I told them I would testify truthfully, no matter what. "And Grandma?" I recorded it, every word, every attempt to bribe me. "If they try to appeal or manipulate again, we have proof." I felt a surge of pride and relief. Olivia had not only chosen the right path, but had also proven that courage and integrity could withstand any threat, no matter how personal or desperate. The following days were a whirlwind of media attention. Our story had captured the hearts of thousands, resonating far beyond our city. Interviews poured in, emails from people who had experienced similar betrayals filled my inbox. And support from strangers reminded me that even in the darkest moments, solidarity and empathy exist in abundance. Yet amidst the public attention, the private healing process began. Olivia and I started establishing routines together, sharing meals, conversations, and quiet moments in the garden. We laughed, we cried, and we built a new relationship based on mutual respect, honesty, and love. She was no longer just my granddaughter. She had become my ally, my confidant, and the family I had chosen through love rather than blood. In the quiet of the night, as I reflected on the journey, I realized the depth of the lessons I had learned. Kindness and love are powerful, but they are not unconditional when faced with betrayal. Protection, vigilance, and the courage to confront deceit are equally necessary. And above all, family is not defined by blood or years shared, but by loyalty, respect, and unwavering support. As I prepared for bed, I glanced at Olivia sleeping peacefully nearby. I knew that while Benjamin and Eleanor's chapter had ended, our story was just beginning. Together, we would navigate life, strengthened by the trials we had endured and the truths we had revealed. And in that moment, I understood fully that even in the face of unimaginable betrayal, life could still offer redemption, growth, and profound love. Because in the end, truth and integrity are more enduring than greed and deceit. And courage, real courage, leads to freedom that no one can take away. Just as I thought life could finally return to some semblance of peace, the unexpected happened. I was sitting in my new garden, sunlight streaming through the trees, Olivia beside me helping to plant new flowers, when my phone buzzed with a message that made my heart freeze. The message was anonymous. No sender, no number, just a single line that read, "Not everything is settled. You've only scratched the surface. Look inside the safe." My stomach dropped. I knew immediately which safe they meant. Benjamin and Eleanor had left behind a small, inconspicuous safe in the old family house, a place I had avoided since moving out. Even during the trial, I hadn't been tempted to return. I had assumed their scheming ended with the verdict. But now, this was different. "Grandma, what is it?" Olivia asked, her eyes wide with concern. I showed her the message. "It seems Benjamin and Eleanor may have left a secret behind. Something they didn't anticipate us discovering until after the trial." Olivia's face paled. "Do you think it's dangerous?" "I don't know," I admitted, a chill running down my spine. "But we have to find out. Knowledge is power, and if they left something hidden, it could impact everything we fought for." We decided to wait until evening, under the cover of twilight, to return to the old house. It was empty now, the air thick with memories of betrayal, arguments, and secrets. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart beat faster. Olivia stayed close, her hand gripping mine, a silent pillar of strength. I approached the safe, a small steel box hidden behind a loose panel in the study. My fingers trembled as I entered the combination I remembered from years ago, hesitating for a moment. When the door clicked open, we were greeted by the sight of neatly stacked envelopes, labeled with my name, but with dates extending far beyond the trial. "What is all this?" Olivia whispered. I began opening the first envelope. It contained bank statements, real ones this time, showing money being siphoned off without my knowledge. And then I found documents detailing properties I didn't even know I owned, hidden accounts, and plans for investments that Benjamin and Eleanor had intended to claim as their own. It was staggering. They had not only planned to steal from me, but they had also kept meticulous records of every penny, every asset, every opportunity. But the most alarming discovery came last. A small, sealed envelope marked simply, "If I die, read this." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were letters written by Benjamin himself, describing a final, desperate plan to manipulate my life from prison. He had anticipated that I might discover this safe. He had even accounted for the possibility that Olivia might help me. Every step of his plan was outlined with chilling clarity, down to the smallest detail, how he and Eleanor had hoped to create legal loopholes to reclaim assets, how they had intended to manipulate lawyers, and worst of all, hints at potential alliances with people still free, who could intervene in ways we couldn't predict. I felt a cold wave of fear. Even behind bars, they had tried to control my life, my money, my freedom. And the truth was undeniable. They had left a trail for someone else to continue their schemes if I wasn't vigilant. Olivia put her hand on my shoulder. "Grandma, what do we do?" "We prepare," I replied, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. "We cannot let them, or anyone else, manipulate our lives again. Every document, every plan, We will use it to protect ourselves, and we will ensure that their final attempts fail. The rest of the evening was spent carefully cataloging the contents of the safe. Olivia and I documented everything meticulously, taking photographs, scanning papers, and making detailed notes. We realized that Benjamin and Eleanor had not only been greedy, but obsessive. They had underestimated the one thing they could never control: our intelligence, our willpower, and our determination to safeguard our lives. As we finished, I paused to look at Olivia. "Do you realize what this means, my girl?" She nodded slowly. "It means that even though they're in prison, they tried to leave traps behind. But we are smarter, we are prepared, and we have each other." I smiled faintly, though the weight of the discovery pressed down on me. Yes, and this is why courage and vigilance are as important as love. We cannot allow blind trust to become our downfall. We must always be ready for the unexpected. That night, as we returned to our hotel, I felt a mix of relief and unease. We had discovered the secrets they thought would remain hidden forever, but now the responsibility of dealing with them rested squarely on our shoulders. Every letter, every account, every plan, if mishandled, could unravel everything we had worked so hard to protect. The next morning, I called Dr. Montgomery, who had been our constant advisor and protector through the legal battles. I explained what we had found. His voice, calm and steady as always, reassured me. "Martha, what you discovered is significant, but it's also manageable. You and Olivia are capable, and with proper documentation and planning, nothing Benjamin or Eleanor left behind can harm you. This is not a new threat, it's simply the last remnant of their obsession with control." His words grounded me. I realized that the final stage of this ordeal was not about punishing my family, nor about exposing them further to the world. It was about reclaiming our lives, unearthing the truth, and securing our future. Over the next several days, Olivia and I worked tirelessly, organizing the documents, cross-referencing accounts, and consulting with trusted legal experts. Slowly, we turned what could have been a nightmare into a source of empowerment. Every secret revealed became a tool. Every plot uncovered a reminder of our strength. And as the sun set on our efforts, I felt something I hadn't in months, a deep sense of control, not over others, but over my own life. For the first time since Benjamin and Eleanor's betrayal began, I understood fully that freedom was not given. It was taken, fought for, and claimed. In the quiet of that evening, Olivia whispered, "Grandma, do you think this is really the end?" I held her close, feeling the warmth and trust between us. "No, my girl, this is not the end. Life is never truly over, and challenges will always come. But now we face them with eyes wide open, hearts strong, and a bond that no one can break. And in that moment, we knew something profound. They could try to control the past, leave traps in the present, and plot for the future. But they could never, ever touch the strength, courage, and love that we shared." The hotel room was quiet that evening, the soft hum of the city outside providing a gentle contrast to the tension I felt in my chest. Olivia was sorting through the papers we had uncovered in the old house's safe, her brow furrowed in concentration. Every so often, she would glance up at me, as though searching for reassurance that everything was truly under control. I thought we were finally safe, that the world of betrayal, lies, and manipulation had been neatly boxed away with the verdicts and the documents we had found. I was wrong. A soft knock at the door shattered the silence. I frowned, walking over cautiously. "Who is it?" I asked. "Mrs. Caldwell? I have information for you. It's urgent." The voice was calm, measured, but there was a weight to it, an intensity that made me step back. I exchanged a look with Olivia. She whispered, "Do we know them?" I shook my head. "I don't think so." "Stay behind me." I opened the door slowly. Standing there was a man in his early 40s, dressed in an unassuming suit, carrying a small leather briefcase. His eyes were sharp, scanning the room with a sense of familiarity that was unnerving. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the sudden rush of adrenaline. "My name is Daniel Pierce. I work with the Federal Investigations Unit," he said, lifting a badge that gleamed under the hotel light. "I know what Benjamin and Eleanor were planning, and I believe there are more layers to this story that you haven't uncovered yet." Olivia gasped. "More? But but they're in prison. What else could there possibly be? Daniel stepped inside, his presence commanding but not threatening. He placed the briefcase on the table and opened it carefully, revealing stacks of documents, photographs, and several folders labeled with dates and names. These are files we recovered from associates of Benjamin and Eleanor, Daniel explained. People who were involved in their schemes before they were caught, but who may have connections to still active networks of fraud and elder abuse. They were keeping records, assuming the family court and the federal system would not intervene fast enough. My heart began to race. You mean, there are people out there who could still try to steal from me? Exactly, Daniel replied. And judging by the sophistication of Benjamin and Eleanor's plans, I suspect they had more than just immediate financial goals. There could be attempts to manipulate legal loopholes, set up offshore accounts, or even intimidate you or Olivia indirectly. These documents contain the names, the communications, and the planned methods. Olivia's hands trembled as she picked up one of the folders. Grandma, all this is terrifying. I thought we were done. I put a comforting hand on her shoulder. No, my girl, this is why we must stay vigilant. Fear is natural, but it cannot control us. We have survived worse. We will survive this too, Daniel continued. There's something else you should know. One of the people in these networks may already know about your public streams, your advocacy, and your foundation work. They could attempt to interfere through media manipulation or false accusations. They are dangerous but predictable if we act first. I nodded, absorbing every word. This was a new level of complexity, a new battlefield that required strategy, intelligence, and caution. Daniel, I said finally, my voice calm but firm, I need you to help me and Olivia navigate this. I want to ensure that nothing, no one, can harm us or the work we've started. He smiled faintly. That's why I'm here. We will create a comprehensive plan, combining legal protection, digital security, and strategic intelligence gathering. But you must understand, this will require patience, trust, and absolute honesty from both you and Olivia. Olivia nodded. We can do it. We have to do it. I glanced at her, seeing the determination in her eyes, the resolve that had carried her through so many trials. Yes, my girl. Together, we are stronger than any scheme, any deception, any network of lies. Over the next several hours, we pored over Daniel's materials. Every document revealed connections, potential threats, and insights into Benjamin and Eleanor's manipulative tactics. We discovered that certain lawyers, bankers, and even real estate agents had been approached by the siblings over the years to participate in their schemes. Some had refused outright, others had quietly cooperated, and a few had remained silent, waiting for the right opportunity. What we need to do first, Daniel said, is protect your assets and identities. This includes your bank accounts, your properties, and your personal information. We also need to monitor for attempts at digital interference, emails, social media, phone records. Essentially, we need to make you invisible to anyone who may want to target you again. I felt a mix of fear and relief. The reality was daunting, but having an expert like Daniel gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. Olivia leaned forward, pointing at a folder with Benjamin's handwriting. Grandma, look at this. It's a list of people they considered allies. Some of these names are prominent figures in finance and law. I swallowed hard. This explains a lot. Why they believed they could manipulate systems without consequence. They had connections, and they assumed no one would question them. Daniel nodded. Exactly. But their arrogance is their weakness. They never accounted for your intelligence, your vigilance, or the fact that you are no longer alone. With Olivia and me, you form a network of protection and knowledge that is far stronger than anything they could ever hope to manipulate. I looked at Olivia, feeling a surge of pride. Do you see now why being honest, brave, and proactive matters? Courage alone isn't enough. Knowledge and strategy are equally important. Olivia nodded, determination in her eyes. I understand, Grandma. I want to help, in any way I can. The night grew late as we organized the information, identified potential risks, and began drafting a plan of action. By the time Daniel left, we had the beginnings of a protective framework, a combination of legal defenses, secure storage, and monitored communications to safeguard our lives and assets. As I watched him leave, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. This was another challenge, yes, but unlike the betrayal of my family, this was something I could confront strategically. I had allies, a plan, and most importantly, a granddaughter who had proven herself brave, intelligent, and resilient. Sitting back in my chair, I looked at Olivia. Tomorrow we start the next chapter, and this time we write it on our terms. No more surprises, no more lies, no more manipulation. This is our life, and we will defend it fiercely. Olivia smiled, her hand finding mine once more. Together, Grandma, always together. And in that moment I realized something profound. Threats and schemes could appear out of nowhere, but strength, vigilance, and love, real love, would always be the armor that no deception could penetrate. The cryptic email sat on my laptop screen, the words glowing in stark black against white. They're watching you, Martha, and they're closer than you think. My hands trembled for a brief moment, but I forced myself to breathe deeply. I had faced Benjamin, Eleanor, and even the manipulations of my own family, and survived. Whatever this threat was, I would face it with the same determination. Olivia noticed the sudden pallor on my face. "Grandma, what is it?" she asked, concern cutting through her calm resolve. I shook my head. "It's just someone trying to scare me. But we'll handle it, my girl. Together, we always find a way." Daniel Pierce had returned the next morning, bringing with him the final layer of our defense strategy. Over coffee in the hotel suite, he explained the situation in measured tones. "The email is indeed alarming," he said, tapping the screen. "It suggests someone with knowledge of Benjamin and Eleanor's associates is monitoring your movements. This could be a member of the broader fraud network they were part of, someone who didn't get caught. But the wording, it's calculated to provoke fear." Olivia's eyes widened. "So they want us to panic?" "Yes," I said sharply, "but panic is not an option. Fear is natural, but control is essential. This is the final test of everything we've learned." Over the next 48 hours, we implemented surveillance countermeasures: cameras, motion sensors, digital monitoring software, and legal notifications, all to ensure that no one could approach undetected. It was exhausting work, but every precaution made me feel more empowered than I had ever felt in my life. Then, on the third day, it happened. The hotel concierge alerted me that a man had been asking about my room repeatedly. I froze, my heart racing, not with fear but with clarity. I had faced imposters, manipulators, and liars, and now it was time to confront this new threat. Daniel accompanied us as we approached the lobby. The man was tall, dressed in plain black, his face partially hidden under a baseball cap. He was glancing around nervously, clearly trying not to draw attention, but his movements were deliberate and precise. "Sir," I said firmly, stepping forward, "you've been observed asking for me. Who are you and what is your purpose?" The man paused, startled, then spoke in a low voice. I was sent. I don't want trouble. Daniel stepped in immediately. You will come with us now. Do not attempt to resist." The man's eyes flicked to Olivia, then to me, fear evident in his expression. He hesitated before finally complying, knowing he was outmatched. Daniel led him into a private area of the hotel, and soon we had his full confession. "I'm part of a network," he admitted. "Benjamin and Eleanor hired me months ago to monitor her, Martha Caldwell. They never intended to harm her physically, at first. But when they failed, when the trial ruined their plans, I was told to keep an eye on her, report any moves, and wait for an opportunity to exploit her estate again." My blood ran cold. Months of careful planning, and now, even from prison, they had intended to keep their schemes alive. Olivia gripped my hand tightly. "Grandma, they never stop, do they?" "No," I said calmly, "but we do. And this ends today. With the man's cooperation, we set up a sting operation. Local authorities, under Daniel's coordination, were able to trace communications back to a safe house used by former associates of Benjamin and Eleanor. Within 24 hours, multiple arrests were made, ending the lingering threats once and for all. I leaned back in my chair that evening, exhausted but triumphant. Olivia sat beside me, her head resting against my shoulder. Grandma, we did it. We're safe. Yes, my girl, I said softly, feeling the weight of the past months lifting. We fought deception, betrayal, and greed, and we prevailed. But the real victory is not just safety, it's truth. We lived it, we spoke it, and we protected ourselves and each other. Days turned into weeks, and the world slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Olivia resumed her studies, now inspired by the ordeal to focus on law and elder protection. Our foundation to combat elder abuse grew steadily, connecting with survivors, legal experts, and advocacy groups. One evening, as we sat in our garden surrounded by blooming flowers, Olivia looked at me thoughtfully. Grandma, after everything, do you ever regret adopting Dad? I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. No, my dear. I only regret that I didn't learn sooner that love and kindness must be paired with wisdom and boundaries. I gave him my life, yes, but I also learned that protecting myself is not selfish, it's essential. And now, I finally understand the value of living fully, loving openly, and standing firm in the face of betrayal. Olivia smiled, her eyes glimmering with admiration and gratitude. I want to be like you, Grandma. Strong, wise, and fearless. You already are, I replied, taking her hand. And together, we'll continue to make the world safer for others who can't defend themselves. Real family, my girl, is not just about shared blood. It's about loyalty, respect, and love that never seeks to destroy. Months later, I reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple note from a doctor. Don't go home, run. It had led me through deception, betrayal, legal battles, and danger. But ultimately, it led me to a truth I had never known before. Courage, intelligence, and unwavering love are more powerful than any scheme, any criminal plan, or any betrayal. As I watched Olivia play in the garden, laughing freely under the sunlight, I realized something profound. Endings can be beginnings, too. And the story of Martha Caldwell, once a tale of deception and family betrayal, had transformed into a story of resilience, justice, and the enduring power of love. And that, my dears, is the most valuable lesson of all. Never underestimate the strength of a woman who refuses to be silenced, betrayed, or defeated. And never doubt the power of truth, courage, and a granddaughter's love to restore what was once lost. The world may present deception, greed, and betrayal, but with vigilance, courage, and truth, even the most intricate webs of lies can be unraveled. And sometimes, the greatest victories are not just legal, they are personal, emotional, and eternal.